Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, essayist, and attorney Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Joining us now is our special guest, my friend, Jane Menton. Jane is a community leader, a thought leader, a public policy leader. She and her father have been leading a fight, which I've been trying to be a little bit helpful on, in fighting against this secular religion of extreme environmentalism, which does not satisfy the needs for energy in the city and state of New York, which threatens the viability of energy, which means no heat in winter, no air conditioning in the summer, computers going down through all operations, whether it's financial or hospitals. The bill that Jane and I have been working on with her father and others is this Local Law 97. Jane, welcome to the show. We're delighted to have you. Would you please?
Thank you so much.
Would you please tell us this whole problem? What is Local Law 97? How does it relate to the state law, and why are they incompatible? The state law is the so-called Community Leadership Bill, and why we should be concerned.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I found out about this law when I joined the board of my co-op. It doesn't sound, it's an emissions reduction act. It was signed into law on Earth Day 2019 with a deadline. The first deadline didn't come up until 2024. The next deadline is 2030. So I think they imagined to themselves by the time we got to those dates, we would have the technology to reduce our emissions to the degree that they were saying that they needed them to be reduced. It doesn't sound, it says emissions reduction, doesn't sound like an electrification mandate. But what I realized when I looked at my buildings, I was on the board of my co-op, my building's emissions, 75% of those emissions were coming from our natural gas, heat, and hot water infrastructure. And the only way to reduce those emissions by anything like 40% would be to completely retrofit an electric heating system into our building. And this, only because I sort of had a background in understanding these energy issues, as you were saying, I've been working with my father on some of this stuff for a long time, did I kind of understand that. And I realized, so at the same time, simultaneously as this local law, this city law is going into effect, these deadlines starting in 2030. The state law, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, says that our electric grid, which also is fossil fuel based at the present, most of New York City's electricity, 80% of it at least, is coming from fossil fuels, needs to be transitioned to renewable energy, ideally wind and solar resources. They had many, many plans to build offshore wind facilities. And that transition deadline is also 2030. So as this summer, or as those deadlines started to approach this summer, Governor Hochul was saying, "Oh, actually, there's no way we're going to be They said a standard of 70% of the electricity is going to come from these renewable sources by 2030. Governor Hochul is saying, "No way are we going to beat that deadline." Meanwhile, in New York City, local law is progressing as planned. They're putting buildings in a position where if they don't start hiring engineers and doing reports to assess how their building is going to comply with Local Law 97, we have to pay penalties, annual penalties every year that are going to get increasingly more severe over the next decade.
What does that do to residential housing, whether you're talking about co-ops, condos, or rental units?
Well, I mean, the cost to shareholders it's an affordability issue. It's a tremendous affordability issue, just not only to do these renovations, which could cost tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into every single unit and try to take out all of that natural gas infrastructure from heat to hot water to cooking. And
when you say unit, you mean apartments,
electricity.
don't you? Not buildings.
Into apartments.
Individual apartments. So you're talking about
apartments.
So you're talking about in the tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars per building.
I'm talking about millions per building, tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars per resident. So absolutely unaffordable for the residents and the shareholders. All of that money would have to be levied either through loans, which means the buildings would be taking on an enormous debt load, or from maintenance increases and other, ways of getting the bill to the residents, so people are going to see their just cost of living to do these renovations skyrocket. Meanwhile, at the same time, as they're saying, you have to put in all of this electric infrastructure. We're gonna run your whole building on electricity. Your elevators are going to be electricity. Your cooking is going to be electricity. Your heat's going to be electricity. Your hot water is going to be electricity. Everything's going to be electricity. They're completely undermining the reliability of New York City's electric grid. They're saying, we're going to have renewable sources. We're going to start shutting down our fossil fuel plants, which provide the most resilient and reliable energy that we currently have. We're going to replace it with intermittent sources like wind and sun. We don't have the battery backup facility set up yet. We don't have anything in place like that. We shut down our nuclear facility, Indian Point. Like, where is this energy even coming from? They have no plan. And they're saying your whole life is going to be based on electricity. Everything that you do in your day-to-day life is going to require reliable, guaranteed, functioning electricity, and we have no idea where it's coming from. How is this possibly going to work? There's no answer.
Jesse.
Jane, it's great. Thank you so much. I've been reading up on a lot of your fight here. Where is the fight right now in terms of, I have actually two questions. Where is the fight right now in terms of this local law? And number two, the hypocrisy is unreal here, where everyone wants to talk about the science, except when it comes to energy independence here. And I believe that most of New York City's energy comes from different states, whether it be Canada, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, which are in some cases are dirtier energy sources than the ones that are being banned here in our communities, and rising the costs for our property owners and our residents who want to seek some affordable dwellings.
Yes. So the biggest fight right now on Local Law 97 is really taking place in the co-op and condo community, where residents are starting to realize, like, mostly, as I was saying, the unaffordability. I mean, where I live in Queens, I live in Sunnyside, Queens. This is not, a Tony neighborhood. It's not Park Avenue. Residents just they simply cannot face 50 to 100% increases in their monthly bills. Like, not to mention, their building took on a debt load in the millions of dollars, what that would mean for their apartment. And for many people, this is like the biggest equity that they have, in their life. So that, as residents become more and more aware, and I've been trying really hard to spread that awareness. We've been doing town halls in these different neighborhoods in Queens, because so often people just don't even know. The deadlines have been so far in the distant future, with so many people just hoping that it all falls apart. And my primary goal is to give the shareholders this information so that we have an opportunity to shift this legislation. We need to return that democratic power to people to say to their politicians, listen, you can't let this go forward. Like, you're affecting average New Yorkers, you're affecting our quality of life and our affordability. And as you're saying about electricity, if New York actually shut down its fossil fuel electric plants, you are 100% right. We would have to import energy from other states, from Canada, something. And the biggest problem I see with that is that those states are already going to be strapped for resources as nationwide electric mandates continue to come into place. Especially under Biden's EPA. Maybe we'll see some of this rolled back under the Trump administration. But there's electric car mandates all across the U.S.
The grid's not going to be able to sustain it, number one. And number two, the way you get the electric grid going is you need fossil fuels to get them going. That's always been the defect with electric cars. So you're just adding to that.
You're just adding to that. And the same thing is true of Local Law 97. You think of like electrifying a building sounds like we're going to be reducing carbon emissions. But the fact of the matter is, if we tripled demand for electricity in New York City, the only way that we could guarantee that electricity is available would be to rapidly build fossil fuel electricity plants. That nuclear would take decades. Wind and solar are intermittent. We do not have a third technology that currently exists that could fill that gap. Okay. So the hypocrisy is startling. I mean,
but it's a nightmare. But it's really a nightmare. In other words, haven't we learned the lesson from California? It's nice to have these woke, progressive ideological commitments to environment, but you have to have a sustainable energy source, and you have to do the basics of governing, which is making the place livable. Eric.
Yes.
So I have two questions. This is really fascinating. Thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention. The first is, are there any current elected officials in New York, whether state or city, that are taking this issue on head on and siding with co-op owners and little people like you and me? That's the first question. And if they are, who are they? And the second is there a federal role in this? Because not for nothing, Lee Zeldin is now going to be the head of the EPA. Lee is, very familiar with these mandates and these laws, from his run for governor and formerly congressman on Long Island. So is there a federal role in this?
So I am very hopeful, cautiously hopeful, that Trump's EPA rolls back a lot of the regulatory legislate that we've seen over the last 4 years. That will help. Trump has said, he's like, oil is America's gold, and he's come out and been very pro fossil fuel. So hopefully that makes a big difference nationwide. But I do fear that New York City politicians, where this environmental idealism is still so entrenched, might go the opposite way, where they really double down on these mandates as a way to resist the Trump agenda. So that's a big fear that I have. And to that point, the biggest spokesperson in city council on this issue has been Vicky Palladino, who is a city council member from Eastern Queens.
A Republican.
She's a Republican. Right. And because she was the first most vocal advocate on this issue, I feel there's been so much resistance inside city council to either side with her and come together in a bipartisan agreement. They just don't want to be seen as taking a position with a Republican, and especially somebody who has been quote MAGA. Yeah. So what's crazy is we currently have an intro that kind of came out of the grassroots movement that's going on in Queens among the co-op community called Intro 772. And that legislation specifically designed just to protect affordable co-ops. It has a assessed value cap at $55,000. And it also factors in if buildings have done other efficiency measures like sub-metering or adding solar panels or having green space, and all these things would all go towards you not having penalties.
My problem is, because I like to look at the whole picture, and when I talk about New York City, I'm also talking about New York State, since New York City is a key economic engine for the entire state. I'm always concerned about forcing people out of New York, people voting by van to get the hell out of here because it's not affordable and it's not workable. And that's a real problem. And
that would absolutely happen in this case. Absolutely.
So the key that people need to know, this is not just a co-op issue. This is not just a condo issue. This is all residents. The penalties will be enormous because if I own a building and I'm renting it to my tenants and I start getting hit with all these mandates and all these fines, what do I have to do? It's a matter of simple economics. I have to pass the cost back down to my tenants one way or another, or I have to shut down my building.
Not if it's rent controlled, you can't.
Wow. Now you have the problem.
You're going to see landlords just abandon their buildings.
That's right. So you're going to have the Bronx. You're going to have the old Bronx's burning days. People are going to abandon buildings. So what are you going to do for housing? And if you don't have housing, people are going to get the hell out of New York. Don't these people understand how this all works together? And Jesse, I just want to point out, and Jane hit on something that's very interesting with respect to the city council, because it's a crazy left-wing Democratic-dominated body. And hopefully in the 2025 elections, we'll get some common sense Democrats and some more Republicans. But I happened to have a conversation yesterday with Senator George Borrello, who's one of the leaders of the New York State Senate, Republican. And I've also talked to Senator Ort, the minority leader for the Republicans. I think it's very, very important for the Republican Party, Jesse, and you're one of the great leaders of the party, to get this message out. It's not just a political campaign issue. It's an issue about the continued viability of the state of New York. And we got to get this absolute power the Democrats have up in Albany to have these mandates that are just not feasible, uneconomic, and drive our population out. What do you say, Jesse?
Absolutely. This is one of those issues, those pocketbook issues that affect every middle class New Yorker, regardless of party affiliation. And it's one of those issues that can be grassroots in nature that can help Republicans break into more seats in the city council because it affects the average New York City resident. The one question I want to ask, and please excuse my ignorance, is there an ability through initiative of a referendum, Jane, to try and reverse this or repeal it?
Let me answer. That's a legal question. The answer is New York State is not a so-called progressive state in the sense of the old Hiram Johnson from California and La Follette family in Wisconsin or Oregon or Washington State, where you can put things on the ballot. It's very, very limited what can be put on the ballot. It can't be initiated, Jesse, by petition in the state of New York. Okay. The only thing that gets on the ballot, very limited numbers under city charter, okay, and very limited numbers under state law. The city council can put something on the ballot. The Charter Revision Commission can do it. It's worth an effort to try to get somebody to do that. But remember, you have a city council controlled by left-wing Democrats. They're not going to put this on as a referendum, right? Mm-hmm. And you have a state.
Maybe there was an initiative and referendum.
No, believe me,
in Suffolk County here.
No. You guys have a better situation than we have. Jane, we're going to have to sign off. Please tell our audience, because this has been a fascinating, compelling conversation, how people can volunteer to help you, what they can do to organize, where they can make contributions. How do we do this?
Okay, so I set up a website. It's called the Western Queens Co-op Coalition. It's westernqueenscc.org. It has an about page. It has resources that you can share with shareholders about our electric grid, about the work that we've been doing in Queens, about the town hall that we hosted. It has a GoFundMe, donate. And if you write to that, and there's a contact me, or if you submit a contact form, you can contact me directly. And I'd love to have volunteers help out and help me spread the word on this.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
Okay, I think it's very important because I don't want people to think, oh, it's only a Western Queens issue. This is a statewide issue. This is a New York City issue. So I think what I'd urge you to do, and you should be talking to political leadership people, great leaders like Jesse and great lawyers like Eric, broaden the message to people, broaden the contact information so it doesn't look like it's just a local Western Queens issue.
Yes, we are working on doing that. This last year, this was the website that I had set up to do my local organizing. So we're shifting it to be a broader, bigger initiative. I'm just teasing this right now, but we have another piece of legislation that we're working on that would encompass all the buildings in New York City to try and protect them from the implementation of this law under these circumstances. But this was on short notice. This was what I could come up with for right now.
Well,
so hopefully,
Jane, you do great work on short notice. Long notice, I think you'll be even better. We look forward to bringing you back on Let the Record Show. And we want to thank you for being with us and educating the people of the city and the state of New York. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is great, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.